teams were surprise contenders in the group stage. For the Flash Wolves, they got off to a questionable start in Week 1, but came out strong in Week 2, going 3-0 to grab the #1 seed in their group.
Yeah, and the thing I like about Flash Wolves, if they're the team that have come closest to showing that there is a recipe to beat the teleport strategy in mid lane, and that seems to be get Caster, get Maple on 2 deadly champions, and then just try and completely wreck that lane itself. If you got teleport, it means you're not taking a cleanse, you're not taking a heal or a barrier. As soon as that flash is down, you can run things like Lee Sin, LeBlanc, and just completely take over the tempo of the game by crushing that mid lane.
Analyzing the two teams coming into the matchup, the first thing that appears is that both of them have the longest average game time, which you think, okay, that might make a really boring game. They all have a deficit at 15 minutes, so you might think on paper that this is going to be a very slow, low-kill game, but these teams have shown that once it reaches that 15-minute mark, it is no stops from that. They just go all out for kills, left, right, and center, and they have a bit of a hard time closing the game, which would make things a lot bloodier, especially because these teams aren't picking very powerful siege, with the exception of their long-range AD carry. Or, I mean, if we see a Tom Kench with Jinx, then that would even be a very viable strategy because you can just get her out of it.
It also makes you wonder how these two teams are going to approach playing against each other. When you look at another team and you say, well, they also like to go late, or maybe not like to, but their games also tend to go late. Should we make an adjustment that says, you know what, we're going to attack the early game and we're going to completely change our play style to work in contrast to what they do, or just try and do what they do better?
I feel like Origen's goal in this particular match is simply because they have red side 3 games because of the lower seed. Like blue side has shown a lot of dominance in this tournament, but with the fact that Origen has the red side, I feel like they'll go for the strong lane matchups as they have done previously in the in the regular splits, where they just pick the strong matchups, go for the Kalista, go for the Cope, get the last pick on Soaz and try to dominate through that.
Yeah, and I feel that even though they're both like distance teams, I feel like one is a distance boxer, which is the Flash Wolves. They like to just keep hitting you and eventually you will go down, versus like a distance runner in Origen who just want to like transverse you around the map as many times as possible until you make that mistake and they pick apart your base. We saw that they got a Baron against the Korean team, then they were able to backdoor the base with double teleport. This team has won some games in pretty unconventional fashion, whereas Flash Wolves, they just keep throwing LeBlanc into the middle of the team until someone dies.
So the traditional way a lot of best of 5s or best of 3s are run is that the first game you just feel each other out and you just, okay, we're going to run our strategy, what we're comfortable with, and it's a team composition that has a very set pace to it. So we might see somebody go with a very crazy all-in early game or go with a stronger late game. And then the second game, that's the one where the teams make the decision, okay, how effective was this specific style against it, and what did they seem vulnerable against? And that's when you see a really big shift in how the play style and the team composition that the teams are running, and adjust it to the best of 5. So the first 2 games for me are the ones that are going to dictate this entire series.
Well, Spawn's analogy has made me a fan of Origen by virtue of being a distance runner myself. I want to take a look at some of the players, though. Someone on Flash Wolves that we were looking at going into the tournament was Stake, saying that he might be the weak point for the team, but he really has stepped up and been a rock for his team.
Yeah, and look, this isn't a flashy player. This guy's not going to go out there and get you the big pentakills, but he's a very good peeling top laner. He can initiate when he needs to, and he also played the Lulu actually pretty well in the game that they ran it with the LeBlanc. So this is a guy, he's probably not going to excite you on Summoner's Rift, but he certainly is a linchpin that does his job very well. And the one thing I will say about Stake is he groups at the right time. One of our criticism of top laners like Dyrus, like Soaz, is that they get caught a lot. Stake pretty much plays that supportive role, so it's very hard to catch this guy out and force an error.
I feel like Stake, even though he has exceeded my expectations, which were very, very low, I don't think, like, still, Stake, I think he still had some issues. I just remember this game in particular where he was laning against Pain Gaming's Mylon, where he struggled a lot in these counter matchup. He was playing Darius and he was playing against Agnar, which is a counter matchup, as I mentioned. And I feel like Soaz on red side in 3 games is going to get that counter pick. And if Soaz is in a dominant matchup against a player that he knows he can dominate, he shines. But if he plays against a better player he knows is better than him, then he gets kind of destroyed.
Yeah, would definitely look for Stake to pick up the damage, as he's one of the lower damage share top laners for his team. Crumbs looking over at Soaz, the guy, though, on the other side of the screen, who, again, you hear the crowd pipe in there for just a moment because he is a hometown favorite. He holds a different role on his team. He's expected to carry, but struggles with some inconsistencies.
Yeah, you know, the split pushing just isn't there. He gets caught out a lot. If you're trying to be a split pusher guy, you need to always know where the team is. And that might be a fault of the team communication, not letting him know that, hey, there's a lot of people coming your way. You need to back off the wave. And we've seen him innumerable times just getting caught out in 1v1s, getting ganked, and just not really fitting the split push pressure that Origen needs. And that might be the reason why their games are really taking that long to close out. Because when you die as a split pusher, you really slow down the pace of the game, and it's horrible when you do that. But, you know, I'm a little worried for him. He has done well, especially in some of the team fighting, but when he tilted in that cannon game, I don't want to see that for this time around.
Now, the picture of consistency, though, for Origen has to be Niels, the 80 carry, the rookie coming in here and performing tremendously on his first international stage.
I don't think he's going to get Kalista, that's for sure. Niels has been the most solid player in the team together with Mithy, in my opinion. And I really like the idea of they have in the draft where they prioritize the Kalista. If the Kalista is out of the way, they pick the Coke and try to pick a strong matchup for him that he can pressure.
All right, well, with all this information in mind, before we head inside the packed house for Game 1, let's get you guys on record. Who do you think's coming away with our first quarterfinal series? Flash Wolves or Origen? Spawn, it looks like we're starting with you, according to the graphic.
Yeah, all right. So I have been hit up so many times today to please not pick my team. So Origen fans, you can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm going with the Flash Wolves today. I think that if you talk about a super sub, you have to mention NL. This guy didn't play the Game 1 and was able to completely take over. They're even cheering the fact that I went for Flash Wolves. This is ridiculous.
All right, Yamato, you're up.
Well, I have to just go with Origen because I have experience playing against him in the best of 5.
There it is. There it is.
I have experience playing against them in the best of 5, and they are very energetic throughout. They are good at adapting. Their coach understands the draft and how to adapt properly, so I expect them to do exactly the same in this matchup.
Split desk, Crumbs, you're the tiebreaker.
I mean, I'm nervous now to say this with the crowd behind it, but I think just from the blue side advantage, this is going to be a really long series, probably 5 games, but in the end, I'm giving it to the Flash Wolves.
Ooh. Wait for it.
Are you giving
there it is. There it is.
Are you giving it to the Flash Wolves or to the blue side?
Oh.
Flash Wolves, man. They're playing on the blue side.
Well, that's what these guys think. It's clear that the crowd might disagree. The stage is set, so we're going to kick it to the caster booth for Game 1. And as we go, we'll hear how Stake and the Flash Wolves are back and playing to win after their rough international debut as the Gamma Bears back in Season 3.
This year is totally different from the last time we came.
Let's talk a little bit about the team, starting with the Gamma Bears, because frankly, not too much is actually known about these guys. Just like last year's world champion, the Taipei Assassins, the Bears are coming into this tournament flying very much under the radar.
So let's take a look at our first match of the day. The Taiwanese champs, Gamma Bears versus Korea's SK Telecom T1.
Well, I think Gamma Bears needs to play the best games of their life if they want to beat SKT.
Last time, our first match was versus SKT. Yeah, and it didn't do well because we got crushed.
Here comes Faker. He has just melted Stake. SK Telecom T1 will advance to face Najin Black Sword in the semi-finals.
To be honest, I think there are some good players on the Gamma Bears side, but this was definitely an individual skill mismatch.
When we were in Gamma Bears, we just play for fun and do whatever we want in the games. Like, it's like a solo queue with our friends. We didn't even practice that much. I don't think we really wanted that win. This time now, like, we know what you have to do to win.
It was impressive to see all their players really stepping up, and I'm really excited to see who they stack up against because I think they'll just get better.
My team members is like 80% same from Gamma Bears to Flash Wolves, but everyone's grown older, and now we have a good analyst. The whole team, like every team member, wants to win. We practice a lot. Our relationship is better, so I think we're more as a team than we was then. Everyone, we put our 100% in this whole thing, so I hope we get good results.
Hello, governors. Welcome here to London. We are ready to start our quarterfinals. I am David Freak Turley, here to bring you guys all of today's actions with, my favorite of colleagues. We've got Mitch Crepo, whose last name is too long to pronounce properly.
All right, mate.
Wonderful. Force Pulse, whatever. And the recently knighted Sir Joshua Jat Leesman.
I didn't know that happened.
Yeah, it didn't actually happen.
Okay, then.
But it was on the prompter, so I read it.
Starting off telling lies already.
Yeah, it's mostly how this goes. Either way, guys, we are getting ourselves into the game. It's going to be an absolutely wonderful one here. As you heard the players talk about, the Flash Wolves, most of them formerly known as the Gamma Bears, were at Worlds a couple years ago, had a really short run. Here, they topped their group, including Coup Tigers. Many didn't even expect them to get out of the group, so honestly, so far, it's already been a great World Championship for the Flash Wolves.
Yeah, and I think both these teams were happy to kind of get each other in the draw. As strange as this sounds, Origen was really excited when they realized they had Flash Wolves. But I think Flash Wolves was kind of happy about Origen. Early game-wise, these guys have actually been pretty weak. They have been able to pull out games, obviously, so this has the looks of a very long and fascinating series.
Yeah, London, definitely conserve your energy. This may go long, especially post 30 minutes is when these teams get bloody. So 0 to 15, kind of dull, especially with Flash Wolves, averaging like, what, 1 kill in those phases of the game. But then later on, if you go post 30, then you get these massive AoE team fights that we're waiting for.
And right now, actually, I'm not surprised though. We'll see the Flash Wolves bans right here. The Callista was first picked every single time Origen could have for Niels, and Elise is actually something that Flash Wolves didn't even play.
Yeah, and we also heard the analyst desk talking about how blue side was a decent-sized advantage in this game. And also these bans, it's mainly because the red side has to ban the Mordekaiser and the Gangplank. At least that's what we expected in these games. What we weren't expecting here is we thought the Jinx was actually going to be banned because NL has been so dominant on it, averaging 971 damage per minute on Jinx, which is the most of anyone at Worlds by far.
Yeah, that's mostly due to the fact that these games go long and you have a lot of AoE defense, but even with that into account, he still does significantly more damage than anybody else in similar roles on that Jinx pick. So Origen should be building an anti-Jinx comp if they leave it open.
Well, interesting, they didn't remove Tom Kench either, so we expect that to come through at some point here for Sword Art. And as far as stealing the Jinx away, we don't think that's very likely either. NL might pick it up this round, but even if Origen had the chance, Niels is not exactly a prolific Jinx player.
Well, we know that Flash Wolves is willing to early pick the Jinx because it's been so dominant for them, and we're pretty sure that Niels can play Jinx. It's just not anywhere near his top played in solo queue. On his main solo queue account, he had something like 12 Jinx games. Yeah, and as a clarification on that stat we just mentioned, 52% more damage per game NL deals than the average Jinx at Worlds. So he's really been proficient on that champion. With that said, though, the Gragas is great at displacing Jinxes in team fights.
Flash Wolves did their scouting, and Soas probably surprises them here with the early Darius pick. They haven't played it so far in the tournament, so top laner Stake obviously has played both Darius and the counter matchup Gnar, so he's proficient in this matchup, but it is a new pick from Soas.
And on top of that, as far as being red side, Origen has last picked their top laner 2 out of 3 times. It's something that seemed likely for Origen, especially considering the perceived mismatch between Soas and Stake. What this means is we're probably going to see Peke actually get the counter pick.
Looking at this draft, this is where Mithy usually goes for a Thresh in a lot of these situations, so it would actually be surprising if he locks in at Alistar.
Well, surprise.
Surprise?
Yep.
Tiny surprise.
Tiny little bit surprise.
I feel like Alistar's really big to be a small surprise. I feel like he's one of the biggest surprises you could go for in League of Legends.
Yeah, well, surprisingly, Alistar's dropped off a substantial amount here at Worlds.
And we're talking the build of the champion is a big Minotaur.
We're already going down that road.
Yes, we are, Jat.
Physically, he is a big surprise.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Well, here we go. Flash Wolves, the last few champions. No surprises here. The 3rd LeBlanc game of the tournament for Maple. His proficiency for Assassin at 7 out of 7 Assassins so far at Worlds. And Sword Art's Morgana also standard. A little bit surprised not to see Tom Kench, but Morgan is.
I think Origen's already looking for a lane swap with these picks because the bot lane matchup, it plays so easily. Morgana Jinx plays so easily into a melee support with Sivir. You never get punished almost. You can pretty much control the tempo of the lane. And then in that top lane, you have the Gnar counter pick to Darius overall. So I would expect some map movements at least to scout out where the lanes are settling in for Origen.
And Flash Wolves has got to be really happy with this draft so far. They pretty much have nothing but comfort for the people that are playing these champions. And not only did they get comfort, they also got counter picks in a lot of situations. Gnar is seen as, once he gets ahead, a counter to the Darius pick. Morgana has been spectacular against Alistar so far at Worlds. It's one of the reasons for the fall-off. And counter-picking in mid lane against the wall isn't something that is actually that easy to do.
Unless the Nivea is the counter pick that no one ever knew about except for Froggen. So this is going to be a fun one. Peke running
the old graph. Yeah, counter picks in mid lane. Nivea. When you get to Nivea, blank. No counter pick there.
This is going to be interesting. So Origen, the only bans picks they got to really spend here was that third Lulu ban and the first pick, Darius. All they've done as far as options was limit Stake down to a Gnar. Everything else, Flashwolves got to pick whatever they wanted.
But I mean, look at Origen. They have such a beefy front line. Darius combined with Gragas and then Alistar support. Then that requires 2 heavy damage dealers. I don't think Nivea Sivir really suit that role. They can ramp up a lot of damage over time in fights, but it's rough.
Well, even in Nivea, you have to kill twice. If we're trying to think of Maple, who has carried multiple games on the Blanc so far, group stage, like destroying someone at the start of the team fight, really hard to do here against a Spell Shield, an Egg, an Alistar, a Gragas, and a Darius. Like, he doesn't have very many good targets to hit, and in that way, Origen has picked a pretty smart team.
And that's what's weird about those then it puts even more onto NL's shoulders. Maple can't burst almost anyone. Okay, we know that one, but you still got this Jinx who's putting the highest damage per minute of the entire tournament, so maybe it's a lot on NL. We'll see if that happens because, guys, we are getting ourselves into Game 1 of the quarterfinals, and you, as always at home, are part of the experience. Tweet at Lollies with the hashtag FWWin or hashtag OGWin. Let us know who it's going to come down to. Of course, this is a best of 5. A team has to destroy 3 Nexi over the course of the series to win the whole thing. So as we open the first game in London, let me hear you one more time. We are into Game 1 of the quarterfinals.
And also, for the fans as well as the viewers at home, make sure you're conserving your energy for this matchup.
So don't do this.
They didn't get
if you're behind your television right now, don't shout.
So, this is such an interesting matchup because Flashwolves and Origen, while they did win in the group, there's a stat called bloodiness, which is the combined kills and deaths in a game. Within the first 15 minutes of the game, the Flashwolves have averaged 1.6 kills or deaths across all of their games in group stage, which is by far the lowest of any team at Worlds. And Origen is the 3rd lowest at 5.2, which is substantially higher, but still incredibly low. So as far as the first 15 minutes of the game here, we were really wondering what the stylistic mismatches were and how they were going to play out.
Yeah, definitely looking at just how slow Flashwolves approach the game. They don't go for any kills. First bloods don't happen until probably after 10 minutes, if I remember correctly. They don't take any first towers. They're a very good reactionary team overall. If you make a play, they have a good reaction, but they're very much so not proactive at all. So this could give you a very stale early 10 minutes.
And when we've been watching their games from the group stage as well, Flashwolves has some negative CS differentials, specifically Stake. He's usually down around 10 CS, whereas Soaz is up around 7 CS, so is Niels, and Peke's been holding his own. But Origen has substantially more deaths in the early game because they're playing their lanes very aggressively and have been punishable by ganks, which will be the question of whether Flashwolves is aggressive enough to take those opportunities or if they're just going to get bullied by Origen in lane.
And that's what's so interesting, just to sort of show you guys the level of sort of over-aggression. Niels, Mithy, and Soaz are combined 3 and 18 in the first 50 minutes of the game. But as you guys mentioned, Flashwolves don't take many early kills. So the question is, will Karsa show up in these lanes and punish that over-aggression?
Yeah, they have those CS differentials positive with all those deaths, which shows you how well they're actually CSing.
Right, both bot lanes now heading into the laning phase. Both got a camp, so we could actually see more explosiveness than we've been used to. So far in this tournament, very few lanes have actually taken a camp. NL and Sword already level 2. Mithy's looking for that experience. He's caught out in the bush here, so we're going to eat some damage and be zoned off that way for a bit.
Wow, yeah, and Sword Art actually did have Binding. It was down for a short time, so Mithy was able to walk up for a bit, but they both match level 2 here.
Yeah. So that means Mithy is likely going to skill heal and just end up playing sustain, unless he goes for combo and some aggression. He's going in.
Goes right in.
Double knockup in, and Elspeth's drone, but Ignite is on. Black Shield mean nothing. There is already a first blood. There is a time where Black Shield was down, and it got abused.
This is such a bold move. Whenever you bully an Alistar early, you force him to skilling heal. Mr. says, none of that. We're going in, and they go on NL. The hard carry for late game Flash was finally blood already.
Who needs heal on Alistar when you can kill somebody?
Level up, heal that way.
Yeah, that is so huge for Origen's lane, especially with the standard laning phases. Flashwolves just overstepped their bounds. They were a little bit too aggressive, and now the question is, will it get turned around? Karsa would be in position for a gank.
But Amazing's coming down. Mithy does not have Flash. He just burned it now. He's running away from a Binding, and Karsa will end the knockup. Now there are multiple TPs available, and the team is coming in. Karsa now on the wrong side. A Flash body slam by Amazing. Gets the second kill for Origen.
And this has been such an improvement here for Origen. When we saw them fall apart towards the end of the last day of group stage, a lot of it was in the early ganks and not matching teleports with the likes of LGD or KT. Here they have more teleports than Flash Wolves, so has matched Stake. Peke could not be matched by Maple, and it ended up just kind of drawing them off of it so that Origen could turn that around. Spectacular start for Origen.
Absolutely incredible here. So you talk about the fact that your lanes are supposed to be winning anyway. So as in fact already ahead of Stake. The teleports got canceled on both sides essentially here, but now just everyone's doing incredibly well. Even Peke's ahead in lane.
Yeah, as these lanes progress, Stake should pull ahead of SOAS. And honestly, if you play it 10 times, NL and Sword Art should win that lane 6 or 7 times, but they just got outplayed. They didn't respect the fact that Mithy had combo. He didn't even have to use his flash, so he preserved his flash, which allowed him then to turn that gank around. Karsa got counter ganked by Amazing.
Oh, he can break the black shield. No, he can't do enough damage in time.
Gotta wait for the barrel.
Yep.
Yeah, they needed to wait for the Gragas barrel to pop, break the black shield, because it's only a rank 1 black shield on a 21 ability power early game Morgana.
Or space out your combo.
Still worth 84.
Kill the black shield with your W, wait, then knock. But it's tough to do that on stage.
Yeah, speaking of that though, players will naturally make more mistakes as the stage gets bigger because the pressure increases throughout this. Flash Wolves beforehand wasn't necessarily expected to win that group. They came into the second day with 1 and 2, maybe not as much pressure on them, but now against Origen on this bigger stage, they were confident in that bottom lane fight and overextended, which is one of the reasons they now have to play from a hole.
I'm actually very interested to see how this mid lane matchup plays out. LeBlanc into Anivia. Seems incredibly hard to land that Q, and I want to know what Pekka's going to do build-wise overall. If he keeps this very slow build, or he alters it into more of a teens-oriented build, so he's defensive against the LeBlanc, and has more wave clear and CDR to just keep the pressure up. Because if Maple's allowed to roam, he could balance out that early advantage that Origen have acquired so far.
Yeah, and the only game we have to judge this off of is when Peke played Anivia against TSM in their first game at Worlds here, and he went the very slow build.
Yeah.
Peke did a Catalyst into a Tear of the Goddess, but it was against TSM, a team that doesn't make many moves early on in the game. And as far as the scouting report goes, Flash Wolves has not taken much initiative either. They generally wait for the other team to engage on them and then are very good at reacting. So I would actually expect maybe Peke works in a little bit of magic resist, but I'd expect a slow build of Anivia here as well.
Yeah, Rod of Ages into a teens is a possibility, or even early at teens. If you farm enough, you can go into Roa afterwards. And so as he's continues to have this push pressure in the top lane, which we don't expect to see in this matchup, and honestly, Karsa should have probably swung around to even that out.
Yeah, one of the biggest benefits here for Origen is because they were able to get those kills early. Amazing and the rest of Origen have been able to get some wards deep within the jungle of Flash Wolves. You can see a ward right in the perfect area between the Gromp and the blue buff, which is why Soaz has been so safely able to push up there, not to mention the pink ward he has in the river. Very few areas of attack if Karsa actually wanted to stop that push.
And Amazing's already doing it some more. He's got the Raptor buff on him, so he knows there's no ward spotting this invade. He's making sure everything's the way it needs to be. And he's up in the top side in case there is some kind of dive to be had. Looks like that's not the case, though, as Neil's on the bad side of a trade. His support is not around, so taking a ton of damage. 200 HP, and now comes the teleports. Peke and Soaz both have them. They're both in already. The wall misses, but NL loses his flash as soon as he gets it back. Soaz lands the upper hand. 2 more attacks will do it. Sword Art's already dead. He's gonna bleed to death. NL makes it 4 deaths, and Origen are incredibly far ahead.
A complete opposite of what the stats have shown us. We prepared for this match. We prepared for a very dull early game right now. Amazing, though, has to get away from Maple.
Looks like we brought up Prenzel Sharpness because it's certainly anything but dull here. Amazing trying to run out. Maple puts in the Ignite. W will kill him. Onto the turret he goes. Flash Wolves get their first kill of the game.
Maple's going to have to do a whole lot more of that because everyone else on the team is actually losing pretty substantially. Love the teleport usage by Origen. They are absolutely capitalizing on, for Flash Wolves, what is a surprisingly aggressive duo lane, letting them play the Jinx, overpowering them when they push far, and punishing Jinx for the low mobility.
In all of group stages, all games combined, Origen got a total of 3 kills. In this match, they've already exceeded that. They got 4 early game kills here. You see Niels, he gets engaged on, but he can wait. And then he can wait for mid to come in and then double teleport is allowing Origen to punish this play. This is the first time really we've seen in group stages that they can punish plays with proactive teleports. when we watched the VODs, Origen was either second to teleport or not teleporting at all, or putting themselves in positions where they could get outplayed by a teleport. This time, they're mastering that summoning spell.
And every time Flash Wolves try to fight the bottom lane, something goes wrong for them, overstepping past an Alistar, getting TP'd down and behind, and not respecting the double teleport at all is really hurting Flash Wolves here.
Yeah, the 3 kill stat you just mentioned, Krep, was in the first 10 minutes of the game throughout all of group stage, so they have surpassed that with a very active early game thus far, and Flash Wolves hasn't responded well. Watching all Flash Wolves games during group stages, you know, they've always actually been a slow team, second slowest average game time in the LMS, so it's kind of out of character for them to make aggressive moves. Normally they're very good at reacting to aggressive moves and punishing, but that hasn't necessarily been the case here. We'll see how many turrets they can trade back to keep this game close.
Well, you're going to see that trade not going to happen just yet, as the bot lane does get cleared away for a little bit there. Maple looking for an aggressive play. The stun will not land, though. Peke doesn't get the Q out in time. Mid lane turret's taking plenty of damage, but bot lane still being sieged upon. And the 3-man group is far too much for Amazing to deal with. Flash Wolves get their first turret of the game.
We also have to mention how hideously far behind NL is. He's got an Avarice Blade and a Longsword, whereas Niels has completed the BF Sword. Sometimes you get the BF Sword to pickaxe mismatch. This is a BF Sword to a long sword, to a very small sword mismatch.
That's true, comparatively.
NL has to be able to swap around, but honestly, where does he actually go? It is so difficult to push against an Anivia with a blue buff in the mid lane. And if he goes to the top side, they lose even more dragon pressure and pressure on the map.
Now this is what Origen very often does well, is where they farm well in split lanes. They play the map on 3 lanes. What they do poorly though is that they die very often trying to farm.
Well, he should have the egg. Plenty of damage there onto Peke. Maple will not take the double damage Frostbite there. And yeah, you're seeing Maple, the one bright spot, the only guy with kills, not even an assist on it, still trying to do work for Flash Wolves.
Well, you can see exactly where they're trying to attack. It's very hard to attack an Anivia, but if Maple can take Anivia back to base, then they would have a chance of pushing mid lane. Luckily for Origen, they picked an incredibly potent wave clear composition, which is kind of just a really good way to stall and let Anivia hit those late game power spikes, because even if Anivia cycles down, you still have Sivir, 2 of the best per position wave clears in League of Legends.
Looks like with the mid wave cleared away, and even though Darius and Anivia are back in base without teleports, a 3-man dragon attempt here for Origen. There aren't many good wards for the Flash Wolves, and there's going to be no contest.
And this is usually where the Flash Wolves trade a turret. Whenever a team goes for a dragon, they would switch to the other side of the map and get a tower, because they're so far behind in this game already. So was really waiting for NL, who's so far behind his opponent. Flash Wolves cross-map, and Origen are just soaking a farm in every single lane, and that deficit is only going to get bigger for the Flash Wolves here.
Jeez, look at that, the preemptive early chompers, and NL runs backwards. He is afraid of Soaz. Well, they are both flashless here. Should be totally safe for this Darius. Flash Wolves are at least keeping up in farm. You look down the scoreboard right there, and actually NL, despite being 0-2, actually still has more farm than Niels. So the farm game is keeping it up. It's only an 1,800 gold game. That's actually not that big for what the scoreboard might have told you. Flash Wolves have a fighting chance.
Problem is though that Maple has to look for these assassinations, as we pointed out in Champs Select already, it is incredibly hard to kill somebody in one go. Maybe twice you can get them, but getting through the Anivia egg, getting through Spell Shield, getting through the Gragas and the Darius's health pools is just almost impossible for Maple right now, especially if Origen is putting decent vision on the left side and the right side, so they don't get surprised and get outmanned.
It's going to take a lot of time, and one of the favorite combos for Flash Wolves during group stages was Maple nearly bursting someone to death, and then NL killing them with the Super Mega Death Rocket. So having NL in a deficit this early on in the game is so crucial as far as the win conditions go.
Meanwhile, Mithy taking up plenty of aggro, walking back safely in a beautiful explosive cast, pulls Karsa back into the team. It's actually Flash Wolves losing the Summoner spell.
Well, same with Mithy, though. He did
Ignite.
Use Ignite on the Karsa, which is kind of what prompted the flash.
Yeah, Mithy, this pick makes sense in the sense that Mithy, in the first 15 minutes, died 7 times in group stages overall, just trying to get that vision in. If you have Alistar, you can avoid a lot of these deaths by just popping your ultimate, so you can see it. He's very confident going in because he knows he always has a backup plan. He still has his ultimate available to do this again. And with a tanky Amazing nearby, they can just force the vision in and keep the game on their tempo.
Yeah.
What kind of moves can be made? Maple already wanted to make a play onto Mithy, not going to land the chain. Headbutt Pulverize got him underneath it. Spell Shield needs a Flame Chomper, nothing else done.
Yeah, so you can really see Flash Wolves trying to shrink the map here. They have NL and Maple consistently in the mid lane. Now it's going to be on Origen, because Origen typically doesn't like playing shrink maps to 1-3-1 and draw the game away from Flash Wolves with a Nivea wave clearing in the mid lane. The longer Origen can play this game, the larger their lead will become, because they're essentially able to farm all 3 waves, whereas Flash Wolves is kind of only safely able to farm 2.
They are actually in a good position to do that, and now they actually have the vision to back themselves up in those positions. Usually, when we see Origen go for very early 1-3-1s, they lack the side lane vision, and that leads to a lot of their deaths in those side lanes. But this time, because they were ahead a little bit, Soaz has a trinket ward right there. So for 1 minute, at least he'll be relatively safe. But we need to see that backed up by more sidestone wards placed by the jungler and the support if they want to continue using this strategy.
And the thing is, Origen don't have a lot of those deep wards near the mid lane. That area can be collapsed upon fairly easily, actually. And you also got to watch the side lane matchups here. Sivir's not exactly a good one-on-one versus LeBlanc, but that's the matchup being had on that top side of the map. That's going to make it difficult for Niels to really push well.
Yep.
Yeah. Amazing did just pick up a Sightstone 14 minutes and 30 seconds into the game. On average, he's picked up his Sightstone at 14:50, which is the second slowest in the group stage. So even with this lead, you can still see the tendencies are staying fairly true for Origen. And if that is also true for the rest of the game, expect a lot of split pushing and hopefully better warding for Origen, because as Crepo mentioned, that has been how they have made mistakes, is they're trying to draw the game to the outskirts, but they are getting punished pretty heavily for it.
Well,
with a lot of their death coming over in those side lanes.
Yeah, absolutely. Niels sidestepping some more. Pink ward and green ward traded there. You got to see a second ago that top lane was being pushed by Maple first, and then Niels had to collect that wave. So top lane, up until the team roamed up to cover this Sivir, Maple was getting the push lead there. And the game has stalled out. The same gold lead has kind of remained stagnant now.
Mostly due to the matchup in the bot lane. Even with an advantage gained by teleport, Soaz can't push it home because he's still in a counter matchup. And as the game goes on, especially say 15 to 25 minutes, that matchup gets the most pronounced, because that's when Gnar starts picking up these items like that Frozen Mallet, and he can keep his opponent at bay.
That was exactly the item power spike I was going to talk about, and he completes it right now. So you can actually see, because of this, Origen is starting to group up more towards the mid lane, and they're trying to force it onto Flash Wolves a little bit. I will say that Flash Wolves, we made the joke about Stake absorbing in the top lane because he can take a losing matchup and not make it matter that much. Flash Wolves as a team has probably been the best absorbing team at Worlds, because they've had to play against so many teams who have beaten them in the early game. Both games against the Coup Tigers. Coup Tigers had immense pressure, and Flash Wolves has been able to take these little micro sacrifices to get them to a point in which they can reach power, and that Frozen Mallet for Stake is when they start winning the split push war and is their window back into this game.
Yeah, the Flash Wolves are actually comfortable being this much gold behind, because they only led once at 10 minutes, and that was only a 66 gold lead. And then at 20 minutes, they're usually behind. They've only led like twice in the group stages. So if this doesn't get too bad right now, they're actually comfortable playing this game. Just keep your eyes on NL, his positioning with the help from Sword Art, if they can turn a fight, mostly around the dragon. An objective that Origen actually doesn't like fighting around too much.
It's true. Oh, we speak about avians, you know, with dragons running around and Nivea and whatnot. I want to point out.
Speak about avians?
We're now speaking about avians.
We are now speaking about avians.
Avians is the topic.
Yes. I want to speak about a really quick mechanical thing that Pekka does not know about. When you deactivate Glacial Storm, it actually does an extra tick of damage. Then you can use that to last hit, do a minor bit of burst. Pekka doesn't know about this. He's actually waiting until the Glacial Storm regular tick damage kills minions, then deactivates it, and actually wastes a little bit of mana doing that.
I did not know about this.
He got it about 6 months ago. Meanwhile, top lane fight, Soaz feeling good about basketballs, orbiting his opponent, but Carson now showing up as well, and it's going to be quite hard for the Darius. Manages to land one tick of the heel, but Sword Art out to land the ulti, and Stakes in there as well. The entire team is top lane as punishment for Origen taking a dragon.
That is a lot of people in the top lane, and once again, this is an example of a very small sacrifice Origen makes, the second dragon, as a window to get back in the game, because if they can now use that pressure to take the top lane turret, they'd be even in gold. But Peke, with some nice cross-mapping, keeps the pressure up in the mid lane.
That's a good wall, but they don't go. NL is alone down under that turret. Amazing doesn't go for the dive.
And this is something we've seen from Origen. They play the map open, and if you hit them somewhere in the top lane, they will take something from you in the bot lane. The problem is they don't predict the play from Flash Wolves here very well. Soaz could have backed off if he didn't have the vision. He could have respected the Vigilant more and just taken the free dragon. But Origen, very often, they want too much, and they end up getting punished somewhere on the map.
And it ends up being a trade of turrets. Top lane outer goes down thanks to the Flash Wolves gank. The Origen persistence in the mid lane knocks one down for themselves. We do have a late tier coming out for Peke, so he is still planning on scaling up quite slowly. That is a recent tier, by the way. Rod of Ages was first and is nearly completed.
It's not super, like it is around 200 stacks, so once he's able to upgrade it, he'll get it, but yeah, 200 tiers at 19 minutes out of 750 is really, really slow. But we mentioned earlier, average game times. Flash Wolves average 41 minutes, 53 seconds. Origen, 42 minutes, 24 seconds. The 16th and 15th slowest teams at Worlds thus far. So I think he's going to have the time to let it complete.
So what you're telling me, Jad, is a 30-minute Rod of Ages is okay in this matchup?
It'll max out. If you're playing it off
well,
statistics.
Seraphs, he already has the Rod of Ages. But yeah.
Well, yeah. They stack. There's almost no unique passes in that item. 6 row of the dream.
Overall, we saw a very explosive opening of the game with NL and Sword Art going aggressive and getting punished twice, one by an outplay, second time by teleports. But as we've been talking on a little bit, the game has been stale. As I say that, we may see some action though.
Flash, headbutt, Pulverize comes in, Maple goes back in! Whoa, the massive outplay, jumps back, jukes Smithy, there's nothing else to do. Beautiful by the Flash Wolves mid laner.
In case you didn't notice, Maple is really good at LeBlanc. Basically, 2v1s right there. Mithy landed the CC, but he's like, well, what do I do? My AD carry's not close enough to follow up with anything. Niels dies in the side lane yet again. So Origen honestly needs to shrink this game down a little bit. Flash Wolves is killing them in the top and bottom lane. And Origen needs to work around the Anivia and the team fighting that they have built up in their composition.
Origen just need to improve their warding right now. It was really good at one point, and that's very often when they place all these trinket wards down, because Origen have a tendency to place a lot more trinket wards as opposed to just sight wards. But then once that vision drops, they find themselves in the dark with no really follow-up play, and that's exactly what's happening right now too. They're not making much plays with vision, and then Niels gets caught here. He can disengage, but they want the outplay.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the chain landed as Mithy engaged is really what sentenced Niels to death right there, and he used the spell shield earlier on. That's now the second time Origen has died in either the top or the bottom lane. In the group stages, as far as where the teams had their deaths, it was a really cool stylistic difference. Flash Wolves only suffered 5 deaths in the top or bottom lane as far as positions on the map, but Origen had died 29 times there. It feels like Origen is continuing to push these sides and
look,
usually suffering some casualties.
Flash Wolves finding it yet again, but there is double teleport, spell shields, the first distortion. Trying to get away, a bunch of binds come through, and here comes everybody. Peke trying to get away from this one. Karsa half health, knockup comes through, but it doesn't do all that much for him. Niels forced to run and hide, he's almost out of health there. Soaz in the front lines, forced to run from the rockets. The zap hits Soaz though, which means Maple can come in for the chain. Soaz will be rooted for another couple of seconds. Here comes the team. Snake! Oh dear! Poaches an egg as Peke goes down, and Flash Wolves take the kill lead.
And that's so punishing for Origen because they expended both of their teleports to try and salvage that play and got a negative result off of that. Flash Wolves has persisted to this point, and they look to take the lead with this turret kill.
But what a fantastic way of using distortion and mimic distortion there from Maple. He passed over Baron into the jungle, doesn't get spotted. Over the Crux, he gets behind Niels. Niels only starts running once he sees Karsa coming out. And because Origens have this spread out playstyle when they use the teleports to collapse, Amazing was actually still in the mid lane. NL was way ahead of that play. He joined, and once he joined, he turned around the tides in that fight. So Flash Wolves, they're planning their plays together. Origen are reacting with teleports, but sometimes you just gotta bail out and sacrifice one guy.
Yeah, I love what Maple's been doing. Moving through the shadows and creating plays for Flash Wolves instead of waiting for Origen to split push them to death. Again, Niels was out of this fight before it really began. And Peke had to use his flash defensively because they both teleported in on the same ward.
And Origen, they feel strong, but they don't know that Amazing's in the mid lane. Poor communication. And Nell comes in. He wasn't spotted anywhere on the map, and yeah, he's going to turn on his fight. And look at the spacing from Maple too. Staying out of Darius' Q range. Stake now realizes that they actually killed Soaz already, so he doesn't need to use his ultimate to secure Soaz. And then he just hops onto Peke. Peke trying to peel. So these little minor outplays here from Stake just adapting during the fight. At first he goes in for Soaz, realizes that kill's already produced. Then he switches to Peke. Flash Wolves pick up 2 kills.
And I want to highlight something that Minor Crypto talked about on PTL this week about Flash Wolves sort of playing to their opponents, playing to level them, playing almost a style that works well. Origen love to play these side lane pushes, this 1-3-1. Soaz got counterpicked by Stake. Niels on Sivir is never going to survive against LeBlanc, and Anivia's not exactly a great side lane pusher. they're not even the right champions for a 1-3-1 style from Origen here. Flash Wolves have matchups for all of them.
Yep. Flash Wolves has been so good at reacting to their opponents. Sometimes you can use that as a negative because, you know, they're waiting for the other team to expose themselves. But basically, Origen has been exposing themselves in those side lanes, and that's where Flash Wolves has been able to capitalize. This game may actually hinge near this next Dragon fight because instead of the picks being plentiful for Flash Wolves with solo people off, they are now grouped up with an Anivia around an objective. Will Flash Wolves give up Dragon number 3, or will they actually try and fight this one?
We keep talking about how Origen's style is 1-3-1, but a case can definitely be made to just spread open the map and then collapse with the Sivir and then use that movement speed advantage to make a pick or an engage or a siege somewhere. Because if you look at this composition, a lot of the issues Alistar and Darius face in these fights is getting to their targets. Sivir solves that immediately for you, and then you can really play out these good zone control team fights with Anivia. So they have the tools to turn around a fight, catch out NL. But he's proven to be very position-based AD carry, so definitely interesting to see if this plays out.
And as much as we talk about Flash Wolves being a sort of reactive team, they've made a lot of proactive picks. Origen haven't gone for sieges or fights or much of anything, but Maple continually opens the map back up. Dragon's been up for almost a minute. Origen trying one more time to take it.
I feel like Maple's been doing most of the work. He has been the one working in the shadows, and he has been the one split pushing for the team. Backwards chain is not the best way to start this, but they do have Anivia zoned out. This could be a fight.
Attempt of steal for Carson will not happen. Sorted down a half health. Black shields himself, so Maple goes in. Chain's only Mithy. He could re-engage his pops the ulti and flashes to leave headbutts a minion to go out as well. Sivir was already popped and is timed out, and now Stake will look for a slow. One auto attack would slow Chain Mithy. They're gonna go for this one. The Chain will land headbutt, won't create enough distance, and that will be a kill for NL with the Super Mega Death Rocket.
And on the topic of controlling this split push that OG does, Rek'Sai is a fantastic pick because you can make your jungler an impromptu wave clear on the other side of the map and just ulti him in. Karsa came in with a tunnel, joined the fight, and once Origen was disrupted, they were too afraid to fight. They felt a need to regroup. And then Flash Wolves gap closes and range CC punished them.
Well, specifically in that fight, Peke was trapped in the mid lane because the push was being threatened while Origen was able to get the Dragon. So I actually think they got a decent amount of value picking up Dragon number 3 and only having the one casualty in the Alistar. I think is an acceptable cost for Origen in the long run. Even so, it does appear that they've kind of lost control of this game, and now their win condition really is more centralized. They need to be able to take Dragon 4 and 5, as well as try and control Fog of War around Baron, of which Origen has really poor ward coverage where they need it right now.
Yeah, it showed Flash Wolves a way to win these fights. You really want to repeat the same scenario over, where you have Maple on the side, picking people off, Karsa going in and then zoning Origen, and then picking up the targets with repetitive CC, while keeping NL safe. Whereas Origen, they just want to group up, get a really good CC chain come in. Gragas and Alistar combine their efforts to really lock somebody down, and then meanwhile you use your tankiness to your advantage, so that Maple can't really go 1-for-1 in that trade. From that point onwards, Origen do win the fight.
We'll see if that kind of team fight can happen. Then if the front line holds and they can deal with the 2.5 threats here. Double teleport is up, but of course so is Stakes and so is Karsa's ultimate. And keep in mind, there are kind of 2 teleports per team here as far as matching map movements. A great find on a Peke. Chompers underneath. Not good for the Anivia. Pops the egg, and now here comes the follow-up. Has nowhere to run. Eggs don't seem to roll uphill. Peke goes down 7-4 for Flash Wolves.
Binding to chain to Chompers is just no escape once they're getting hit by this first CC, and Origen is just not grouped at the right times to keep this Flash Wolves composition at bay.
Yeah, just not respecting the range of these soft CCs, following up by hard CCs. Peke had Flash available, he could have backed out. He can also put his ulti down and just walk further away, just avoid getting hit. But again, NL opening with a beautiful zap there, and then lack of respect for Peke. It cost them a tower.
That's turret number 5. Flash Wolves have knocked down 2 of the 3 tier 2 turrets now, and the entire team sitting up in the top side of the map now around Baron, around that recently dead red buff.
And lights going on here for Origen. No wards around Baron whatsoever.
Yeah, there's an upgraded sweeper on Karsa and on Sword Art. There is still a pink ward in the inventory of Stake, and honestly, Origen just hasn't been in the proper position to get the wards up that are necessary. Amazing has a very small window now, as well as Mithy, to get these defensive wards up around Baron area. Such a critical time. This is actually, for Flash Wolves, this is the cost of taking that second turret. They think it's worth it, but they've kind of lost a little bit of control of the jungle here, where with the way Origen is being caught out of position, Origen needs to set up shop here and get a pick of their own, because they are getting completely punished by Flash Wolves.
They trade the Baron control for push in the bot lane by Stake, and also getting a base time for all their members to spend the gold. So in that sense, Flash Wolves They lose a bit of the map, but they gain some potential momentum down the line. We need to see if they can actually deny enough vision here from Origen. Because Origen, they're fine with losing the map as long as they can sneak in 1 or 2 wards on this Baron area and just prevent the Flash Wolves from doing clean Baron. Because if they collapse, they have a fantastic team to collapse on that Baron area.
Whoa, Hava getting collapsed on right there. Anivia melts Maple, gets another one. 4-0 and 4 for him. Now Minty caught up, has to pop the ulti, but does he really even get away with this one? Low health does walk out. A lot of ultis burned.
Ulti.
Amazing blocks it.
I think we're seeing here Flash Wolves on their very comfortable champions. And when we swap sides of the map for the next game, that might be what Origen has to go off of. The blue side is a huge advantage in this particular matchup because of the comfort that Flash Wolves has, more so than it would be for even a normal team. Because when Flash Wolves is at their best, it's on this specific set of champions, especially with Maple on an assassin like Maple. Or like LeBlanc that we're seeing one.
And El just took a giant chunk of damage thanks to the Baron, and Peke's TP is up. There's actually room to make a big play because Maple and NL have to leave the map and heal back up. They could conceivably even Baron and they'd probably get it.
Yeah, Stay can obviously match Peke there and slow them down. Origen looking for vision here. So many wards though in the area still, so Flash Wolves will play with perfect information.
And mid tier 2 is the target. Origen go for the much safer choice. That does go down. Origen keep the game within 3,000. Dragon up in a minute. The Flash Wolves have shown they have broken this game apart.
Nice slow. It's just, there it is.
They look for the play in NL. Black Shield comes in before explosive cast cam, but Soas trying to frontline for the team. Amazing, incredibly low. One last rocket does it. The
Snake's flanking.
Well, unfortunately, the team can't join yet thanks to the Anivia Crystallize, so Stake will just buy some time with the Frozen Mallet. Undeterred, though, keeps the CC going towards Mithy, and yes, these guys are going to chase. Anivia stops it.
And we're starting to realize why NL actually deals so much damage, because his zaps are on point. Every single kill so far has been started with either 1 or 2 consecutive zaps landing by NL. That ability is pretty hard to land. He just slows them down just enough that they don't want to flash out because they don't want to waste it, but he can rack up a couple of hits. Then when they do flash out, it's very often too late because they just chase and then he gets the kill.
This is the big play, though. Dragon spawns up, and Origen knows Flash Wolves want it, so they start away at Baron, but missing one sweeper, don't kill the last ward in the pit. Flash Wolves know if it's a bait.
It's such a hard play for Origen to set up right now because of the amount of vision they need to clear.
Gotta go for it.
Yeah, they don't walk in with Mithy. Right now, Amazing would have an upgraded super, but he's been dead, so this is in vision of Flash Wolves. They're trying to collapse. They gotta finish it.
Amazing can jump over the wall. Who's gonna win this fight? It goes to the red team. That goes to Origen. Here's the battle. Karsa alone in front, absorbing, gets dunked. Soaz is online. Maple's down. He's still going. He doesn't get the third as Azonius comes across. He gets some damage on his Snake. He gets the kill. He's on to NL, and it's gonna be to save the game. Soaz gets a pentakill after Baron.
And that's how you win a game. That's what you do. You just fall to the wayside throughout the mid-game, and then 30 minutes hit, Darius pentakill. Beautiful Zonias by Sword Ult, but it wasn't enough to stop the power of Noxian Might. 200 attack damage plus. Once he triggered that here, he was hitting the outer ring of his Q to heal up and power tank the game, and instead of trading a Baron for a Dragon, they have their cake and they eat it too.
All right, let's watch this again. Amazing comes in, holds his smite here, barrel, and then smites at the same time. Stay can't steal it, and look at Sword Art and where Maple is. They're still joining this fight once it's already hopped on. Deals, with his heal, survives long enough to deal some damage and then run out of the fight.
NL is late to this fight, and specifically Maple actually got picked off. He wasn't sneaky enough on the LeBlanc. The stun from Peke just to set up Soaz for all of this power.
Soaz actually pulls him out of Miffy's combo, but that little stun there coming from the side from Xpeke, that bought 2 hits that NL could have done in this fight. Those 2 hits were enough. If you don't land them, Darius on Soaz's pick there can chain heal from hitting those Q, and then suddenly he stays alive in that fight. So if Peke missed that stun, this could have been an entirely different fight.
Yeah, I think this also speaks to the fact that Origen was really far behind, because after a pentakill, Baron, and Dragon, they're still up only 1,000 gold, but I think they do have a better team fighting composition as we saw in that cascaded Baron fight. So now, let's see how well Flash Wolves can repel this Origen push.
We're going to try for it right here. Stun of the wall will not land. Early Black Shield comes in. Now Maple around the back. Doesn't get much done, but Amazing is overcommitted, and he's going to get picked up. Karsa low on the backside, so is Sword Art.
This time, Flash Wolves have NL in the fight from the start, and then they have Maple distracting on the side. So there's two ways to play the fights. Either you focus on one guy, blow him up for the reset on Jinx, or you just make it so that they can't afford to focus on NL, and he just has so much backline damage.
That was a really awkward engagement because as Amazing was going into the initiation, Maple had the flank position. So half of Origen had to go back to respect Maple, and instead they lose Amazing, which is better than the alternate of Maple basically killing Peke and then losing the whole fight. Mithy really trying to keep Maple on the backside.
Forces the ult out of Mithy, but it's a low health bar. Ooh, they nearly catch Peke with the rocket.
I think that's push done.
Yeah. Mithy's job in this fight is pretty much goalkeeping. He has to keep Maple away, intercept that distortion, either with a W or a Q. Neil's doing some damage here. Look at that crit, though.
It's still a 4v5. Keep in mind, Flash Wolves do not yet have the Mega Gnar ulti, though, and not enough damage comes out of Maple. Sword Art also missing Flash means no engage, despite the fact that Amazing was back in base off of respawning. And as you said, pushed up.
Yeah. I think this kind of goes to show how far this game is from a natural conclusion. With the Baron buff, Origen couldn't even 5v5 siege a middle turret. Normally, it's the inhibitor defending turrets that are hard to take with Baron. The one that they just got pushed back on is the easy one.
Yeah. Origen as a team never use Baron to end the game. They use it to break open the base. That's when they take down a lot of these tier 3 towers, but right now they're having issues even getting past tier 2.
Yes.
Against a team that plays late game Jinx, has an AD carry with the highest damage in the entirety of group stage, well surpassing any other Jinx players even in that regard. So if we go on with this and we get a Ziggs later on coming out of Sword Art, NL could potentially start solo carrying these fights.
And that is next. You can see the amplifying tome in Sword Art's inventory. I would bet you that is going to be the incredible AD carry empowering Zeke's Harbinger. A couple thousand gold away from that one. We'll see if it comes in.
They're trying to get that pick onto NL. They know he has no flash.
Black Shield in, and Karsa front lines for the team. Buys a whole lot of time. Flashed away. Sword Art also buys a lot of room, but Soaz has reached the back line. However, Amazing got picked off. It's a 1-for-0 so far to Flash Wolves. Stake goes back in. He does have the ult if he rebuilds Mega Gnar. Flashes for the slow on Peke. NL wants in. Gets chunked out by a boomerang. Still hitting Peke, though. There's the zap. There's the hit. He's an egg. That's going to be a 2-for-0 to Flash Wolves.
And look at the beautiful zoning. Karsa goes in with a 3-man knockup, then Sword Art just positions himself as a blocker. Just presses ulti and zoning. He doesn't care if they walk out of his ultimate. All we need to do is keep NL alive. And in the midst of all that, Amazing find himself goes off and killed.
You could really see how hazardous it can be to chase down NL's Jinx with the rest of Flash Wolves being able to protect him. Black Shield, the knock-up from the Rek'Sai, as well as the flanking from Maple, plus Frozen Mallet on Stake. He's not really using this offensively. People are, like Soaz is trying to run at the AD carry. Stake's just hitting him with that Frozen Mallet slow again and again, and you can tell it is shutting Origen's team fighting down. Aside from that one, you know, kind of nice pentakill.
Yeah.
Gave him 6,000 gold power play.
But even with a 6,000 gold power play, they're still behind 700 gold, so... And this is the story of these games. So like it will be the same game 2, 3, and 4, potentially 5. We get more explosion post 30 minutes.
This game was action-packed by these team standards up until the first 30 minutes, but by tendencies, Flash Wolves has the bloodiest games post 30 minutes, and Origen the 4th bloodiest games post 30 minutes. So really, we've already seen a pentakill post 30 minutes.
Well,
what more is in store as these guys battle
This is in store, because here we go. Sword Art Black Shields himself, but NL will not get grabbed. Maple's around the back, looks for Niels, doesn't get too much done, and now he's zoned out for a few more seconds. Stake is low, turns into Mega Gnar, but it's a disengage.
Change in approach for Origen. Instead of looking for the backline, they just pick away at these peelers, at these blockers, so they try and get Sword Art to force him to use Zhonya's or ulti defensively to save himself, not NL. And that way, you see Maple try and go for a flank, but he doesn't have the bravado to really combo. He just goes in and out, so not much damage returned from the Flash Wolves.
Now keep in mind, as far as playing a disengaged game goes, we are 30 seconds away from Dragon 5 for Origen. They've managed to control that the entire time. And so if they can set up that line one more time, in 25 seconds, they can go for the aspect.
Yeah, right now, Origen's wards are placed around the Baron area. They have triple pink right there, but they actually don't have much vision control at the Dragon Pit. So what will Origen choose? You've seen teams trade Dragon 5 for a free Baron and then take their chances at the next one. Origen does kind of hold the cards right here, but they have to be careful that they don't walk into a bad team fight because the death timers could end the game.
And Origen, they've learned their lesson. Instead of rushing into their inevitable doom, they've been kiting a lot more in these fights, but right now, Flash Wolves are rushing down this Dragon.
Yeah, and Origen, they didn't have the vision control at the Dragon Pit. They're going to try and trade for Baron, but the timers were desynced by 10 seconds. So how much Baron can they get, and how well can they run away? Last time this resulted in a pentakill, but Peke's running a little low on his mana pool. He has a blue buff.
They're just two-manning it, and it's gonna go down. There's a second bear of the game, and here comes the fight. Flash Wolves on Dragon 1 at least have some stats. Here's the engage.
Niels flashes
for an auto onto Maple. A couple of knock-ins come through, and so has wreaking havoc on the sides. Niels is still safe. Peke lands a stun. Sword Art goes down. Mega Dart does almost nothing, and Stake is the second kill of the fight. It's 2 for Peke.
But instead of tunneling on NL and not being able to reach him, they actually take the composition apart piece by piece from the front.
Yeah.
Origen wins fights whether either they kite and they kill the front line, or they get this Baron buff and they can hit the front line anyways.
Long death timers too. It is just Sword Art and Stake, but how much can they get off this one? If they pick off Maple or NL, the game could be over, but they finally break the base with Baron number 2.
And speaking of picking off, if Maple had landed that chain, it might have actually killed off So as it would have triggered the mimicked Q mark right there, but doesn't happen. It's gonna stay alive for now, but it's only a 3,500 gold game. Origen didn't get a lot off the last Baron buff. We'll see what else they can get here.
And in these slow late game fights with Leandris from Anivia, we'll talk about that later as we see this replay again.
So Leandris on Anivia is great for tank busting. Darius is also pretty good for tank busting if you're going through here. You could tell Origen isn't actually trying to focus the squishies here. They're just trying to kind of play their own backline and just trade who has more damage. Origen has the better tank line, the better protection, so instead of them trying to dive, they are killing frontline. This is the proper way for Origen to play the team fights with their very tanky lineup.
You don't want to give NL AoE rockets. Even though he was in rocket form, most of his offensive tools, hang on, Karsa. Most of his offensive tools were used on a single target only, not AoE. And then Peke, if you have to walk over Leandris' ultimate from Anivia, you will take so much damage over time in these rather slow fights overall.
And you also want to make it as difficult as possible to flank on the block. When Origen commits people to the backline of Flash Wolves, they leave themselves exposed. Now they dive.
They're going to go for it. Turret goes down. Sivir ults in. So as the front as well. And look at Stake getting forced out. He is a barrel away from death. Niels gets the kill. It's a 5v4. A gigantic minion line. Going to be hard to answer. So as gets a shield. He walks forward. This turret is nearly already dead. Amazing takes a big chunk of his health bar. Rockets come in. That crit would have killed him, but it was only a normal hit right there. Another chunk comes through. NL forced to flash over the Anivia wall, but the inhibitor turret is dead, and Origen are not deterred.
You can see Peke's Leandris Anivia is doing a number on Flash Wolves. And even though Origen had to kind of make a desperation play to get back into this game with the first Baron, that's a nice pick by Maple. There has been a distinct change in strategy in how Origen plays their team fights that is paying some pretty huge dividends. Flash Wolves not willing to give up though. That's a big time Rek'Sai. Peke is not there. He would almost need to teleport down to save this now. Karsa, he comes up lane.
All right, everyone walks away fast enough that all is well. A death on Mythic, though, is still 35 seconds of Origen having to cede the map for now. There's no way they can go for a fight without him.
This style that Origen is playing is fine in the current iteration of events. Look at the way they play right now. Stake is the primary target. They just don't want too many AoE rockets on NL. Black Shield gets used early, but because Miffy's playing Alistar, he can afford to do this with the Unbreakable. This gives time to stun into barrel on Stake. Barrel even misses because Stake doesn't even run. But Miffy's soaking more damage than Stake is. So you're trading support for top laner in these fights, and from that point on, they're winning. But if Flash Wolves finish Zeke's, which they have right now.
Not even, oh, they have it.
They just have right now. Then this slow playstyle where you leave Jinx untouched may actually come to punish you, because you're looking at 90% crit on NL right now.
Meanwhile, 55% for Niels, and there's double Randuin's Omen on the front line here, so it will be fairly hard to cut through those two.
90 when it procs, obviously. You still need to get the Zeke smoke, but that takes some time, and you usually get it easiest if you just focus on tanks, because they make it a lot easier to hit them, and then you can switch to these more priority targets.
Niels is also full build. Sivir does a very deceptive amount of damage late into the game, especially now that the team fights are becoming a little bit condensed. The Ricochet is hitting many, many targets. If Stake and Karsa want to dive together, Niels gets to hit both of them. And really, this game has been controlled by Origen's ability to take care.
Here we go. Niels got to knock down that tier 2 turret. After all, the Bloodthirster, he's happy to take a few shots and make sure it goes in. As we go 43 minutes into this one.
As expected.
Yeah, as expected, of course.
Love it when a stat pans out.
What's crazy is Origen have about 11,000 gold, roughly, in Baron power plays. If not for the Baron plays that they had, they'd be down like 6K in this game. Like, their ability to make these calls. This is what Europe is known for, by the way, is taking the Barons when there's a dragon up on the map. It's worked out twice now.
Yeah, and Freak, I feel like these teams are such a close matchup against each other. that most of these games will come down to very bold plays and their execution in those precise moments. I don't think this is a matchup where one team just outclasses the other or consistently makes so many super small movements that they win by a landslide. There will be a lot of back and forth games in this series.
And as you talk about execution, Steak face X.
Oh, geez.
Right before that, though, Maple, he got the black shield. He was ready up to go, launched himself over the wall, maybe make a pick, and he headbutted the wall as well. And I kind of killed out the entire
Becky was ready. He had ult queued just to prep for it. Either way, we are getting ourselves back into this one. 23 seconds on the next chance for Dragon 5 for Origen. If they get this, they can take Baron during that duration, get both buffs on. There's already 2 inhibitors dead, so even Flatwolves leaving their base would be hard.
Yeah, Dragon 5 is huge here because Origen is actually set up to do so, and trying to get in on a zone-controlled Anivia, who, by the way, has a very timely blue buff, is incredibly difficult.
They're trying to pop Stakes Mega Gnar before the Dragon fight. That's why you saw Pekka hit him over, but they're now rotated in position. This could be an end of the game.
It's a classic Origen play. Just when you think they're going for a Dragon, they go for your base. Everyone is ahead of them.
Everyone who's ever on a team with this Pekka knows this move. They're already into the base, and Flashos go, dude, where's my base? Too late, it's already gone without even getting a kill. Origen dropped the Nexus in game 1.
Classic Peke Soad shot calling, but it's actually Niels who led the way on that rotation. Everyone was thinking about Dragon 5, but Dragon 5 only helps you kill the Nexus. Why not just kill the Nexus?
I love this bait and switch that Origen pulled here, especially game 1 in the best of 5. To win a game in this manner just gives like a mental blow to the Flashwolves too, because they were, okay, maybe we can get back into the game. Maybe if we get this Dragon. No, our Nexus is gone.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, this is literally 3 objectives in a row that Origen get because of the threat of Dragon 5, not because of Dragon 5 itself, because everyone cares so much about this. And I mean, just think about the prep these teams do. How much the LMS as a region and the Flashwolves as a team fight around Dragon every single time. The team that gets Dragon 5 wins every game in that region because everyone always fights over Dragon 5. And if you win the fight, obviously you win the game. And Origen just read them. They're like, yeah, you have to care about Dragon 5. We'll take a Baron. We'll take another Baron. We'll take your Nexus. And every time, Flashwolves go for the same play.
Looking at this game, though, we saw a couple of the tendencies coming into the game that we expected confirmed. But we already saw some changes here that Origen did in their play. Very much so the proactive teleports early in the game. This is not something we've seen. They've usually been either second or not teleporting at all. Yeah. But this time it was good to see them go for these proactive plays. But then the game took the normal turn, where Flashwolves are just so good at stabilizing and not looking for more action.
I think we saw some of the strengths and weaknesses of both these teams come out pretty strongly in game 1. Teleport usage from Origen, but some lackadaisical play in the side lanes, and Flashwolves showed how well they can absorb. And then at the end of the day, we got to see Origen backdoor the Nexus. So what way to start the series?
It's a great way. It encapsulates all the strengths and weaknesses of both teams. But for an even closer look at that Origen win, let's send it over to our interview lounge with some expert insight.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm joined here by the Fisho and Clement, too, who is a caster for the LMS region and knows the Flashwolves very, very well. Let's break down this first game, starting with the picks and bans. Because watching, as someone who's watched Origen for a while and has watched the Flashwolves for a while, I was quite surprised at all the power picks given over to the Flashwolves.
Exactly. I think that the Flashwolves got to play exactly what they wanted, and OG didn't use their strength in on purple side. If we look at the group stages, they actually won 3 games on the purple side, and a huge part of that was giving Soaz split push pressure in the top lane. But this time, they actually let Steak get the Gnar against the Darius matchup, and I think through the middle of that game, we could see the advantage. They didn't have anywhere they could push.
And we were talking about this during the game, how this Lulu ban on red side doesn't seem to be necessary against the Flashwolves, because it's Steak who's going to play it on top side, which means there's no front line suddenly for the team, and they rely so much on him being that big tank. We saw him on the Gnar, so I think they should leave that one open, ban away that LeBlanc for Maple, which was just such a pain for them to deal with. It was just all over the place.
Yeah, definitely. And if we step away from the picks, okay, OG had made their bed, and then they start off being very, very aggressive, which is something that we've seen from them a lot in the European LCS. Not so much so far on the world stage. How come they weren't able to hold on to their strength there? Because they got the first, but they got the pressure in the bottom lane.
I think the main play we have to talk about is the double TP top lane, where they got punished very heavily. Amazing was in the bottom of the map, and they didn't know that NL was already heading on their way. So
we actually have a replay for that one as well to look at that one indeed, and we can talk over it. And as you said, Maple, a staple for that team, and to see it here once again.
Yeah, it was just so weird with the way Origen were positioned on the map, with always amazing being on the bottom side with the side stone. So they had very few defensive wards. So even though they got ahead at first, we can just roll the clip now. We notice how Maple's been able to sneak in behind because there's 0 wards in this jungle on the top side of the map for Origen. So they're only looking offensive almost. Nils gets caught out at first, has to run away. The double teleport comes in. It worked earlier in the game for Origen, but look at amazing on your minimap. He's so far away from his team, he's never able to help, and flashwolves gets to play this team fight where they avoid the burst coming in at first and then can just keep chasing with more and more CC.
And honestly, when that fight happened, I thought, from knowing how the flashwolves have played and knowing that they have that power pick, they have a fed Maple on the block, and they have especially the Jinx, I thought it would have been over and the flashwolves would have been able to clean it out. What do you think?
I think OG really knows what they want to do with their composition. The reason Darius is so strong right now is even if you have a counter matchup in Gnar, Darius in the team fights can just go right through him. If he gets enough items, Gnar is not tanky enough to hold that front line. So that's exactly what they did. They baited the Baron, they forced him into a team fight and just went through their front.
Yeah, and with that, Europe got a little bit of vengeance for the Balls pentakill. We can roll that pentakill from Soaz here, also on Darius and on the game-changing fight, putting it back in OG's favor.
Yeah, really, so for Origen, because they got so many early dragons, they could keep like forcing flashwolves to move down to stop these dragons from stacking up and then always start the Baron in advance. They did it this time around. Flashwolves comes in super late. NL joins the fight now, and his tank is already dead, or one of the tanks is already down. And this is where Darius just shines, because once you get that first kill, you get 4 stacks on the next one. You even heal so much on your Q. One of the nice buffs you got coming into Worlds, making you even stronger in these team fights. And it's fantastic played by Soaz, but also why these teams value Darius so much, because he will always be a threat in team fights. On just having a Black Cleaver, he has enough damage to kill your entire team.
Yeah, that play was just disgusting, man. Soaz, thanks for ruining my Worlds experience.
For game one.
Hey, game one.
For game one.
Let's talk about that, though. Game one, from the side of OG, it is very risky to give the flashwolves all their power picks and the ones they like to play, but if it pays off in this manner, what will that mean for the next game, knowing that OG will be on the purple side and flashwolves, on the blue side and flashwolves on purple?
So you mean like OG on the blue side next time?
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Okay, I think the second game is always crucial in this series, because if they bring out a new strategy and they're on the blue side, the other team, when they go back on the red side in the next game, they're not going to have any way to react to it. So just Rito, fix your champions, thanks.
Well, I think looking at this year, because Mordekaiser and Gangplank is banned so often on red side, it meant for Origen they couldn't target some of these comfort picks like LeBlanc, like Jinx, possibly even a Tahm Kench coming in later, who knows. They should be a lot stronger on blue side. And I think them winning the first game is so huge for this series, because again, blue side, where they can now take away these comfort picks from flashwolves and force them to ban away the Gangplank and Mordekaiser, should mean that we get a better pick and ban phase, because I honestly felt like Origen lost this pick and ban phase to the flashwolves. They were just so few answers at first to how they could deal with like Jinx and so on, but because they played the early game so well, because they ran offensive Summoner and Alistar as well, they got the level 2 all in to kind of shut down the Jinx, buy them some time to get early dragons. They then used later on to bait these Barons over and over and over. So really them getting 4 dragons so quickly was massive by playing so well in the start of the game. They need to really fix that vision control, though, because it also has to be defensive, otherwise you get picked off left and right.
Yeah, and Maple, we know that he's great on LeBlanc, but he's good on a lot of different champions as well, so we'll see what happens. We have to step away for a minute, but when we come back, the flashwolves will take to the Rift and try and tie up the series versus Origen. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
If we think offensively, the series will take a huge turn.
Soaz lands the apprehend. 2 more attacks will do it. Sword Art's already dead. He's gonna bleed to death for another couple of seconds. Here comes the team. Snake! Oh dear! Poaches an egg. He gets some damage on his snake. He's on that now, and it's gonna be to save the game. Niels is still safe. Peke lands a stun. Sword Art goes down. Megadar does almost nothing, and Stake is the second kill of the fight. Origen dropped the Nexus in game 1.